Good afternoon, everyone. Those of you who are on the West Coast, good morning to you. We are very glad that you are here. I'm Joyce Epstein, and I'm your host today. Let's see if I have my video in the right place. I think so, right. So hello to all of you. And if there's anyone in the waiting room, we're going to let them in as well. I'm here with my colleagues, Dr. Stephen Sheldon, who will be talking with you soon, and Brenda Thomas, our facilitator, and Rachel Chappelle, who's our super duper coordinator. She and I are in a building where the boiler broke a couple of days ago. So we're all bundled up, and I think Rachel has got her hood on. So she's showing, I think, as a as our NNPS coordinator on your screen. We are very glad you are here today with us. Your work as leaders of districts, organizations, and states or regions within states are the crucial work that gets done in sustaining great partnership programs in schools, in your areas, or in your projects. Without you, really, things just are haphazard. So we're very happy you are here to refresh your thoughts about the main issues or the main steps in being a good leader for partnerships. This little webinar is a member benefit that we do each year just to refresh people, get you thinking about your leadership roles. And then in February, we do a similar free webinar for your school teams to refresh their minds and their agendas on how they're going to put their program together to reach all families in ways that help all students do better in school. That's the agenda we've been working on. As you see in the corner of our screen, this is our 25th anniversary year. We're very happy about that, and we're very happy you're here today. So we're going to go through our discussion today, and you'll see there's several places where we're going to put you to work. Here are some of the logistics of today's session from now until we finish around 3:30 or so. If you're lost, use the chat box and Rachel will help you get re-engaged with us. If you cannot hear, please make sure your sound is on, but please mute your microphone and close your video until such time as you become a volunteer to share ideas with us. That will keep our focus clear. So when you have something to share, you're going to come back and turn your video on. During the webinar, you will be asked to send questions or information to the chat box, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Or if we don't get to your questions, we'll send you an email after this is finished. So please feel welcome, free, and encouraged to put your questions as we go along. If you have questions about what we're talking about, we really want you to know what you really want to do in your location on these leadership tasks. The webinar is being recorded, as you saw a moment ago, and it will be archived. So we want you to share this again with your colleagues or review what you heard if you've forgotten something. And so we put this in an archive recording for you. In this webinar, you will explore the roles and responsibilities of district leaders. You've seen this before, or you know it from training workshops or the big workshops that we do, but you still may hear things you hadn't heard before. So please feel that you can gather good ideas, take notes to help you strengthen how you lead your schools or your districts, if you're state or regional people, so that they can do their work well. You will learn about leadership and facilitation strategies. You know, we make a big deal about these two words, leadership from your office and facilitation, where you're helping schools if you're a district, or districts if you are a state or region, to do their work well. And you'll see how we begin to talk about how you help others as you facilitate good work. At the same time, you are conducting leadership in your location that is part of your current job description. And later in this session, we'll ask you to think about your very next steps. What are you hearing today that's going to help you tomorrow take some steps to strengthen your leadership and your facilitation of either schools or districts? If you're a new member of NNPS who's with us today, you are preparing to start up. Startup might mean things you're going to do during the rest of this school year, 21-22 school year, ending in May or June, whenever you complete the school year. And if you're an experienced member, you may be ready to scale up with the number of schools you help if you are a district, or the number of districts you help if you are a state or regional leader. And of course, some of you who are just starting up may be able to use the next few months as a planning, setting up period, training time for your schools to get ready for the 22-23 school year. So people who are attending today are from different locations, as you'll see in a moment, but also you're at different places in the development of your work. And we want you to be ready to share good ideas as we go through the session and activities that Steve Sheldon will share with you soon. Here's who's here today. We have over 30 participants from Arkansas, Louisiana, Ohio, South Carolina, and Washington State. And we're very happy to see that people are here from all across the country. And we know that you like to share ideas with each other. And we like to hear from you all the time. So let's get started. We have district leaders who are helping schools. When organizations, some of you have school-based programs, and some of you organizations are regional leaders who help districts. State leaders help districts. So keep in mind, who are you responsible for as we go through the day? I'm going to turn this over to Steve, who's going to help you tell us who you are, who are here today. So Steve, you want to take that away?
Yes, thank you, Joyce. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Sheldon. I am the Director of Research with the National Network of Partnership Schools, and I've been working with NNPS for, gosh, a little over 20 years now, a very long time. Anyways, it's a pleasure to be here and to be able to talk with all of you and to get to know you. And on that, we'd like to have get a little bit of a sense of who's here today and who you are, not just for ourselves, but so that you will know who your colleagues are on this webinar. So I'm going to launch a poll. And I'm going to ask you just to take a minute or two and just let us know, what is your position in leading programs of school, family, and community partnerships? And so just let us know who's here, and that will give us a nice sense of. Oh, so we've got 7. So it looks like, I think there's a few more people that maybe haven't responded. There we go, a couple more. One more. I'm going to give it just about 5 more seconds so you can check your business card or the name on your door to see what your role is.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna end and share the results just so you can see. So it looks like about 2/3 of you who are here are working in a district capacity as a district leader for partnerships. We have a state leader and a couple of our infamous others. So if you're an other and you want to share, please use the chat. You can always share who's here. I see that Sharon Harris is here on her iPhone. So hi, Sharon. But we'd love to hear what those other roles are, and just to let you know that you have colleagues from all around in all different places, and we're happy that each and every one of you are here, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Steve. We'll try to figure out in our volunteers time of who the others are. We'll see who's other.
We have one regional entity, Patty.
Regional folks are really, we call you an organization, but that's good to know. So I would like you to know, all of you who are here, what we draw from our research base that Steve and I have put together over many years, and why it's important to engage families and community partners in your children's education, and why we want you to be able to talk about the research base that guides your work in your location. Let your colleagues know that you know that what you're doing with your schools and/or districts are guided by research findings. So we know from our and other studies for very many decades that students whose parents are involved do better in school. That's a kind of social fact from where our work started many years ago. Kids whose families are engaged do better in school. What we've learned in our studies through NNPS and our center here is that a partnership program can increase the good outcomes that schools have set in their school improvement plans for student achievement, attendance, behavior. And if you have a program that's working in a goal-linked way, then students will really meet the expectations for their learning and development more than if you don't have such a partnership program. And further, if you can help your schools create goal-linked programs, meaning that what is planned in terms of family engagement activities is linked to the goals that are in your school improvement plan for student success, then we're using parents' time in a meaningful and goal-linked, helpful way. So we want to have the base that we know it's important for students to have engaged families, but we need programs and goal-linked activities to actually make it possible for more families to be engaged and for more children to do better in school. Otherwise, we just have sort of accidental activities, and we have no idea how a program is being planned. So these are important results you should be able to chat about with your supervisors, with your colleagues, with your school boards, so that they know you are following a research-based approach to partnerships. Why is it important that you are there, the leaders for partnerships? Steve's and my studies and others show that if you have a leader for partnerships who's passionate, who's there, who cares about what's happening in the parts of your project or your program or your schools, the leaders for partnerships end up with schools that have higher quality programs, as we measure them every year, and that they address more of the challenges. We call these advanced programs, who are challenged to engage families who might not be engaged otherwise. The hard to reach families, the less engaged or uninvolved families. When you have a leader for partnerships in your position, leaders like you, then we know our schools out there do better in reaching all families, including those who are harder to reach. We want you to know that you have a theory-based approach, that the theory we follow was one that I developed many years ago to explain results that we were finding in our studies. We call this overlapping spheres of influence. We ask you, where do children learn and grow? At home, at school, and in the community. That's just social fact. We know this is true because it's always been true. But what we've learned in our studies is when we bring the spheres of influence together, then more students do better in school. And you know that there still are people out there, you may meet them now and then, who say if the family would just do its job, then we, the schools, could do our job. And what we learned over time is that that leaves students sort of out in midair. They aren't sure who they're listening to if they don't hear multiple sources of support with similar messages from home, school, and community. If we bring the spheres of influence together, then more children do better in school. And you can explain this in terms of what you do to your superintendent, to your school board, to your principals that you meet with, and so on, that they know that homeschool and community are three contexts where children learn and grow. And we want to have programs that bring the spheres of influence together in partnership. You can see where these spheres overlap. You also see there are some things that don't overlap. And that's where families and schools and communities are doing things without consulting with each other. But where the overlap occurs is where our partnership programs grow. And so we are always asking, what's happening in those areas of overlap to build good partnerships between and among home, school, and community? The first part of our time together this afternoon focuses on your leadership, your roles and responsibilities as leaders. Here are two of our good partners. I think both are here today. So we're always growing our knowledge and improving who knows what. But we have partners in Pasco, Washington, in Richland County, in South Carolina, who have earned multiple awards over the years because of good leadership. When they have new leaders come in, that's why they're here today, trying to help everyone understand the same kind of approach that's research-based, evidence-based, and talking about who you are, what you do, and what we think our studies show that would help you do better where you are working. So these are two places that have earned awards. You have to work with us 2 years or more to earn an award. They've both been working with us a long time. Pasco for, I think it's 17 years. We just had a meeting together with them a while back. These are photos from pre-COVID when people could get together, but they actually earned awards, both places, both districts earned awards last year, 2021. So we always congratulate good leaders, and we look to them to show others that you can take research, put it in practice, and do good work in your location. In our approach to leadership for partnerships, we know that districts and organizations that work with schools have two major responsibilities. We call this the double arrow. The top part of this arrow says, well, we know you're going to conduct leadership level activities from your office, things you were hired in your job description, creating the partnership approach in your district or organization. And what NNPS adds to your work is the next part of this arrow, to facilitate each school's action team for partnerships. Without that, if you are just working here, you are not facilitating, you are doing the work. When you facilitate each school, their action team begins to do the work of outreach to all families, and that makes your job both easier and more successful. When you put together the two parts of this arrow of responsibilities, then you end up with partnership program goals being met. If you are here from the state or regional office, we know that the leaders there guide districts to do these two responsibilities well. And the way that we think about this is called a leadership ladder. How do we think your work should proceed so that you maintain your mental health, That's a step number one all the time. And that you succeed in helping others reach their local goals so that they can do their work well. And we know that our state or regional leaders are responsible for reaching out to and facilitating districts. If the state or regional leaders facilitate districts, that's a nice contained kind of responsibility, and it's building the capacities of district leaders to do their work well. District leaders are responsible for outreach to schools. If the state tries to reach all schools, they will fail because schools are too far in distance geographically and conceptually from the state office in one city or even a regional office. The schools are most connected to their district. So that is why on this leadership ladder, the districts are responsible for helping their schools do the work well that studies have shown help them reach all families. The schools are responsible for the outreach to all children's families in ways that help students do better in school. And we know that when each level of leadership works with that group that they really are responsible for facilitating, then we end up with more families engaged in more ways that help more students do better in school. So we want you to think about your job in a kind of a contained way. Who are you going to work with to facilitate their capacity to do their job well? And in so doing, we end up with everybody really succeeding at a higher level. Here are a couple of ways, if you remember the two parts of that leadership level and facilitation double arrow, this is the top half of the arrow. We ask you, well, what do you do now? And what do you want to do better on the leadership top part of the arrow to keep your work going forward? Do you, and you can be thinking about this or writing a question or answering yes, even though we can't hear you. Are you reviewing or do you know about the official policy on family engagement? We like to think that you have a policy at your state or district level or in your region, or your schools have policies too. If you have a policy on partnerships, that policy should get enacted, implemented. But you need to know if you have a policy. Do you have a policy? Do you want to know it better? Then you would be thinking about these few bullets that we consider basic leadership level, top part of the arrow, things that we want all of you to feel comfortable, capable doing. Do you conduct staff development on partnership programs? You're a leader at the district level or the regional level. Do you do some staff development to share your expertise? Some places conduct workshops for parents. Other places leave this to the districts to do. And many locations where you are you asked to make other presentations on partnerships? That's a typical leadership activity. Are you updating information about family engagement on your website? That's a leadership level activity. It covers kind of the broad scheme of things in your location. Some places have an advisory council, not on everything. That may exist too, by the way, at a state or regional or district level, but some places have an advisory council for family and community engagement, information, activities, guidance, and kind of input. Do you collect best practices from your schools and your project, in your region, in your location, in your district, or from the nation as a whole, as from NNPS and our books of promising practices? Are you being the collector and the disseminator of good information? And then what other leadership activities do you do? So we know that these first few bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, are things we expect most district and state and organization leaders to do in one way or another, to be the leader for partnerships where you are working. But you may do some other things as well. And you'll be able to think about that shortly. Now let's look at the bottom part of that arrow. Facilitate each school's action teams. What do you do now if you are a district? If you're a state, you're going to work with districts to help them do these things, right? What do you do now and what do you want to do better? Do you conduct the NNPS one-day workshop for action teams to get them started to know the research base and to plan their good partnership program? As a district leader, do you make monthly or weekly contacts with all of your school teams? If you're a regional or state leader, are you making monthly or weekly contacts with your districts? So I hope that you're seeing, depending on your role here today. If you're a district leader, we're going to be talking about things you do with your teams, school teams. If you're a state or regional leader, we're talking about things you do to facilitate your districts so that they can work with their schools. Are you holding quarterly cluster meetings or some scheduled meetings for all the ATP chairs, the school team chairs, co-chairs, to get together and share good ideas or to talk about challenges that they face? Do you have a meeting with the principal of each school, along with the chairs of the teams, to talk about how your office at the district level helps their school teams do a better job during the school year? Principals are key to the success of these programs, and meeting with you as a district leader helps them see that they are not alone in working for good family and community engagement. Some districts, we encourage districts to conduct an end-of-year celebration with all their school teams to share their best practices, write their next plans, talk about how they've solved some challenges, things that make you a facilitative leader, meaning that you're trying to help the action teams at a school level build their capacities to work with their own students' families. Do you guide action teams to evaluate their programs at the end of the year? And do you help them evaluate the activities that they implement during the year? You know that NNPS helps evaluate all programs at the end of each school year on our update survey that enables you to renew membership, keep working with us, keep growing your skills, becoming more and more expert as leaders for partnerships. And you may facilitate your schools in other creative, interesting ways. You know, Steve and I did a report last year along with Rachel, where we found that COVID, our distressed situation with COVID-19 that we really would just like to disappear, actually did help schools and districts learn more about their students' families than they knew before, and create creative activities for outreach to families using new technologies. So there were things we're learning from you about how you facilitated schools when faced with a serious challenge, a real crisis. And that's how NNPS helps you keep learning together. We learn from you too, and we want you to know that that keeps NNPS fresh and new for helping the next group of districts and schools, states and regions that come into the network. The next piece that we're talking about is what you need to know about your schools. We just talked about how you facilitate, how you lead from your office to create the leadership structure that's going to make you the expert in your area for school, family, and community partnerships. But all of you need to know what you are going to expect from your school teams. District and organization leaders who have schools in their project facilitate schools on key components for effective practices and programs. And we know that there are just a few basics that NNPS helps you keep in mind and keep working toward and get better and better each year as new schools or new people come into your schools. So we're going to talk about the action team, the one-year action plan at the school level, how to evaluate the quality of activities and progress each year, and the most important bullet that we know you have to keep in mind is continuous improvement from year to year. We know that you know, and we want you to talk about the 6 types of involvement that become part of a school's action plan, how to engage parents in different ways and in different places. We don't have time today to go into these deeply, but on our website, there's lots of information and many, many examples in our books of promising partnership practices on the 6 types of involvement. Type 1, helping parents understand child and adolescent development and helping educators know their families. We know that this is 2-directional, that every type of engagement has 2 directions, not telling parents what to do, but also learning from them. Similarly, communicating is 2-way. Schools do a good job of sending information home. Families need to have a way to have input to the schools. Excuse me. This is another way that COVID was actually, in some ways, a benefit to many schools who had to think of new ways to connect with families using multiple technologies over the past 2 years, and how to help parents who could not communicate before COVID know that they were a part of your communication strategies during, and in fact, because of COVID. It's actually a very interesting, unexpected finding, something that Steve and I called a silver lining from what we learned from all of your schools. Type 3, volunteering at school, in class, at home, and NNPS ads as audiences. Now, audiences gained a new kind of design and picture within the COVID challenge of how people were beginning to attend, what students were doing, or activities that students were engaged in at school, at home, online, and in varied forms. But all of those folks were volunteers. And in a way, COVID made every family a volunteer family. They were really checking into and being part of the work that students were doing in school or at home. Type 4 is learning at home, has to do with homework. Again, you know, COVID really taught us a good deal about engaging parents with children in learning activities at home. Even when they started to go back to school, we just got our new data, looking at our new data from last year, and many of your locations changed schedules during the year. We were all virtual for one period of time, and then we were hybrid. Some kids were in school within a district, and then some schools closed and the kids were virtual again. These are very challenging scheduling issues. What we learned that last year that was very interesting was that schools and districts in NNPS were more likely to do more and better, more creative activities when they had a strong partnership program going before COVID struck than those who were just starting out and building the relationships with families that we know are important for the connections that had to be made during the COVID challenge period. Things are beginning to open up now, and that's a good thing, but there's still a lot of kind of changing schedules going on across the country. Type 5 decision-making are your PTA, PTO, other parent organizations, how you get parent voices to be heard about school decisions. And type 6, collaborating with the community, how you are utilizing, working with, and benefiting from, and giving benefit to partners in your community that are going to help your schools, your families, and your children. We know that schools are asked to create their action plans with activities covering the 6 types of engagement, because these types engage parents in different ways and different places, making it possible for all parents to get engaged somehow or another. The action team, as you know, is 2 or 3 teachers or more, 2 or 3 parents or more. Principal must be on the team. Other members may also be on the team, including nurses, school nurses, counselors. Parent liaison must be on the team, because otherwise that person thinks the team is taking over their work, when in fact there's plenty of work to go around. And at the high school level, we ask for 2 or 3 students, 1 or 2 students, some students, to be on the team at the high school level, to make sure that students know their voices also are being heard in deciding what is a good partnership for students at the high school level. Here's another one of our school award winners from Cleveland, Ohio. The day school here has won an award last year for doing very creative work during a very challenging period of time. And we encourage you, if you haven't already, after today, to take a look at chapter 3 in the Handbook for Action that guides this work, which is all about teams. What does the team do? There's only 4 main tasks of teamwork. Review the school goals, and you're going to select 2 academic goals, 1 behavioral goal, and 1 goal for a welcoming climate, to create the 4 pages of your plan. Write a 1-year action plan with those 4 kinds of goals selected in ways that will help all the families become involved with their youngsters, with your schools, in those 6 types of engagement. And always, of course, keep at it to implement the plan. Can't forget about implementing and evaluating what's in the written action plan so that your program actually proceeds well. And to continually improve your partnership program from year to year. Those 4 bullets are what we ask district leaders to do to help their schools. They're what state leaders and regional leaders need to know about the school programs to guide their districts to do the work that has to be done with their schools. And you see our very active Hawthorne team at the top of this slide, also a multi-year award winner, including last year during the COVID challenge, doing very creative work with very diverse family groups within the school. And they are multiple award winners, meaning that they've been improving their program from year to year for several years now. So which research-based components are needed? Just to review again: establish a team, write the plan, use the framework of 6 types of engagement, allocate a budget at each school so that they can do the planned activities, allocate time for the team to meet. One of the things that we really keep track of and after everyone, to make sure teams meet monthly so that they do their jobs really well. They build a cohesive kind of well-functioning team, and evaluate and improve from year to year. Now you know what schools are asked to do within NNPS. And you know from the prior section, the district and organization leaders who work with schools are going to be the facilitators of their teams. And you know that state and regional leaders are going to be guiding their districts to do the work that helps the schools reach their families. Keep in mind that leadership ladder. So now we put the two pieces together, your leadership and what you know schools must do. We know that one facilitator at the district level can help up to 30 school teams. Most of you don't have 30 school in your district, but some of you do. And we know that when that happens, then you have to have some leadership assistance. Part-time facilitators in smaller districts work for less than full-time on this project, but still can do those things that good leaders do with the smaller numbers of schools. State leaders and regional leaders can work with all ready districts. If a district is ready for your help because they want to work with their schools, then the guidance we provide to state and regional leaders let you work with as many districts as there are in your area. You are expected to write a leadership plan for partnerships each year so that you know how you are conducting those two parts of the arrow. How are you doing the leadership work from your office? How are you facilitating schools that are part of your district? And to have a good budget, evaluate your work the same way that we ask schools to evaluate. Sort of have to keep in mind that certain things have to be part of leadership work, like evaluating progress. And NNPS helps you do that at the state, regional, district, and school levels with the evaluation we conduct each year called Update. That helps you assess how did the year go and what are you going to do next? And then how are you going to continue to work on family engagement over the next school year with NNPS by renewing your membership. So in short, we know that you're going to have administrative support from your superintendent, other administrators, the school board, your official policy, whether it's state, regional, district policy, your principals, and you have others who you are trying to reach in your location. If you have good administrative support, our data show that your leadership will be more effective because you have people who are in your area who really are aware of what you're trying to do and supporting you in that work. Similarly, collegial support from the many departments in your districts, in your state departments, in your regional offices, if they know what you're doing and help you with the agenda of family and community engagement, we know from our data that you will be doing more leadership at the top part of that arrow and more facilitation with the groups you are taking responsibility for. So working with your colleagues is a very important step. If you're not doing that yet or not doing it actively, make a note and think about how you can add this to your agenda for the next few months of this school year and how you'll work at that in the next school year. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Steve, who's going to ask you to think fast with the first activity that is that we sent to you a couple of days ago called Activity 1. So Steve, I'm not sure, do you have control over the screen or shall I move as you talk?
Why don't you move as I talk, just to be safe, if that's all right?
Okay.
So hi, everyone. We have presented to you quite a bit of information, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to digest it a little bit, work with it, help internalize some of it, and help you really think about how this will work in the work that you're moving forward with. So one of the activities that we sent you, activity 1, actually has a double arrow with an oval at the end. Joyce is holding it up on her screen. And what we'd like to do, and what we would like to have you do, is begin by writing one important goal one of your partnership goals for your district, your organization, your state, the regional level that you're at. So put in that oval at the tip of the arrow, the goal that you would strive for, or a goal that you would strive for. And then I'll give everyone just a minute to think about it without hearing my voice. Okay, great. So now in the top half of that arrow, we want you to focus on leadership. And we want you to write one leadership activity that you'd like to see your office start, continue, or improve upon as you are working to meet the goal that you have put down there for yourself. So think about the different leadership activities that Joyce just went through, and then write an activity or an example of that you're going to commit to doing. And then in the bottom half of that arrow, we want to focus on the facilitation, and the facilitation of either schools or districts, or regional teams, if you're working at the state or level. And we want you to think about one activity that you can be able to conduct that will facilitate, either if you're a district working as a district leader, that can facilitate school-based action teams for partnerships to carry out and implement this work at a high level, or to improve their work. And if you're at a state or regional level, think about one activity that you're going to commit to that's going to help guide the districts and the district leaders with whom you work to get their action team and leadership teams together to work for partnerships and to work at that district leadership or facilitation level. So take about 5 minutes. Here, according to my clock, it's about 2:46. So I'll come back in about 4 minutes and let you know that we've got about a minute after that. So think about that again. Write down your goal, write down a leadership activity, and then a facilitation activity that you can commit to and that you can commit your organization to. If you have a question, you can write them in the chat box. We're monitoring the chat so we can answer your questions and help you out there. Okay, so let's finish up a little bit. It's been about 4 minutes. Hopefully, if you're with your colleagues, you've been able to have some nice discussions.
Steve, do you want to take like 2 examples?
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. So we would love to hear from a person or a group out there that has worked on this activity, and just share your goal and either the leadership or the facilitation activity that you thought of that could really help you achieve the goal that you'd set for your organization and for yourself. Don't know if there are any volunteers.
Well, we can make a volunteer. We have some very good people who are here who would share some ideas. We have someone who's going to raise their hand and tell us a goal and leadership level activity that you do from your office, and or something you do to facilitate your schools. Who's brave here today? I know some brave people who are out there. I knew Esmeralda. Esmeralda, thank you for unmuting and showing us your lovely face. And would you tell us which example you'd like to share?
Yes, we like to share resources in our community, especially during these times, because there's been more abundance of them, and just best practices that we know from attending monthly meetings at our schools. When a school is doing a great job, we like to showcase them either at our cluster or in our ATP Times, which is our monthly newsletter.
So that's one way
wonderful.
that, yeah, that's the cluster meetings that we asked. Esmeralda is a district leader in Pasco, Washington, one of our very successful districts that even when they change superintendents and keep getting new families into their schools and add new schools from time to time, they still have cluster meetings that help the teams get together from school to school once a quarter to share ideas or to share challenges and talk about how they've solved some challenges. And one of the activities that Pasco has in the current book of promising partnership practices is how the cluster meeting leaders from their schools actually knew that other schools were doing some good things really well, and that at their meetings they wanted to feature what is happening from school to school so that other schools could learn from each other. That's what a good district leader does. It really helps know what's going on in the schools, and as they do in Pasco, help the schools learn from each other. Let's get one more brave person to share something that they're doing. Rosa, let's unmute Rosa. Tell us something that Rosa is one of our great leaders from Charleston. And what is it that you'd like to share, either a facilitative or leadership activity?
Hello, everyone. Greetings. I would like to say that I'm sort of kind of was thinking the same way as Esmeralda. I wrote in for my goal to share resources with the community as well as with our parenting staff. I work closely with all our parenting staff members in our district. We have about 46 Title I schools, so we're a pretty large district. And I tied it in kind of how would I do the leadership activity. I wanted to improve collaboration with our organizations inside and outside of our district, which kind of ties in of all those resources that we have access to, as well as far as our ATPs is really to kind of drill down on those resources as well as to do more training with them. So that's kind of how I saw it.
That's excellent. And Rosa is a rising leader. Charleston is a rising district in NNPS, and we're looking to see that you fulfill your goal, Rosa. That would be great. And can you do some of that this school year?
Yes, ma'am. I had spoken to Brenda a little bit about our thoughts, and we are featured in the NNPS Promise and Partnerships. Actually, we have 2 schools. Right. So we are very proud of that. And to say that we have only really, well, I have been working with this for 5 years. I think we're doing really well.
Right.
So.
That's great. That's great.
Very good. Thank you very much, Rosa. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to our next section of your leadership and facilitation strategies. We're going to dig down a little deeper into the 2 parts of the arrow. If I had to ask you to remember something from today's discussion that you keep in mind all the time, it is this distinction between leadership from your office and the facilitation of schools. And the 2 examples you just heard from Esmeralda and from Rosa really are talking about how those 2 are combined and connected If the district leader knows that there are good things happening in the schools and bring together their teams and their information, then the school teams get to really sort of spotlight their good work because of what the district leaders did. They knew about what was going on in the district. They made opportunities for sharing, and they were conducting both the leadership level activities by really enriching the district and then helping the schools see that they can build their capacities to work well with families. There's Pasco again, one of our current year award, last year award winners, and Little Rock, who I think also is on our call today, and they're a multiple year award winner in Little Rock in Arkansas, and Kay Rainey's photo is one of those at the tippy top of this picture. So the leadership and facilitation strategies that are sort of, we just named them, leadership. So what are we really talking about there? Over the years, the districts and states and regions in NNPS helped to identify 6 strategies that make good leaders because of what they do, both from their office, top half of the arrow, and in some other ways with their schools at the bottom half of the arrow. So as we go through these leadership and facilitation, those 2 words, leadership, facilitation, your office, what you help others to do. Think about how you right now conduct these 6 strategies. How do you create awareness of the work you do, of your connections with NNPS, of your intention to have a strong partnership program, of the existence of your office, of the importance of the work you do as a leader. So creating awareness says you want everyone in your location, in your district, in your state, in your region, to know that you are working on improving school, family, and community partnerships in ways that help students do better in school. And I want to emphasize that part too, because some people still think this is about the parents. And NNPS wants you to know that when you create awareness, it's about how you're developing your program, your leadership, the facilitation of others, so that more students do better in school. The second strategy, how are you aligning your program and the things you do as a leader with the policies that are on the books in your location? So again, going back to what we talked about, do you know the policy? How are you integrating what you do on family engagement with the overarching policy statements, priorities? Some districts and states call them pillars, recommendations. How are you getting to the point to align what you do with your schools or your districts so that your policy comes to life? Third, how are you guiding learning and program development? The examples that Esmeralda and Rosa gave you are ways they do that by helping schools share with one another good practices that the district leaders know are good practices. You want to share the best, and you want other districts to be able to adapt or adopt good policies, starting with the NNPS one-day workshop, so that the teams at a school level know how they're going to put their plan together. And those of you who aren't sure about that, you'll see at the end of today's discussion that we have a deep workshop, a three-part workshop coming up in March that we actually show you how to conduct the team training workshop. The fourth strategy, share knowledge. How do you help everybody collect best practices, learn good practice kinds of activities, communicate in a way that you are sharing your knowledge? If you are a leader at the district, state, or regional level, and you're getting smarter by what you learn, either from NNPS or from countless other good sources of information, you're becoming smarter about partnerships, more expert about partnerships. How do you share that with your school teams so that they also become smarter and more capable to actually run their programs to reach all families in ways that help students do better in school? One of our partners, I think the Ohio folks are actually here today, they had a booster workshop a week ago or so on how you reach all families by using multiple technologies and multiple communication strategies so that people really share knowledge in a stronger, deeper way with all families to get them engaged in ways that will really be helpful to their students. So there's all kinds of ways to share knowledge. If you keep the knowledge all to yourself, you become smarter, but your programs might not become stronger. And that's where NNPS sort of guides your work. Every month, Brenda, our WAIT facilitator, sends an e-brief to you with some good ideas to share to make you smarter. And then we hope you'll take some ideas from our e-brief and have your own e-brief that really gets out to share knowledge with your schools and with your colleagues. Fifth, to celebrate milestones. Here's where the fun of partnerships really does come into play. When you recognize good work and spotlight your schools or others in your district or colleagues from the community, or however you're going to sort of acknowledge good work, then people know you are a real leader, so that you're smarter, you know what happens out there in other locations, you identify the best work going on, you spotlight that, and other people will begin to learn from each other. That's the network, that's the networking that NNPS is trying to encourage in your work. And finally, to document progress and evaluate outcomes. And again, not only does your teams at the school level assess how did each activity go when it's implemented from their one-year action plan each month or every other week, or however they're conducting their activities with families, how did it go at the activity level? And then NNPS will help you at the end of year kind of period to assess the progress you and your schools and your districts, states, and regions have made throughout the whole year. So there's all kinds of ways to document progress and evaluate how are things going. I'm going to turn this back to Steve, and he's going to lead you through activity 2. And there we're going to sort of put you to work with a kind of a checklist and see how do we really identify these 6 strategies. So Steve, it's yours.
Thank you. So for the second activity, what we'd like you to do is really think about the wide range of activities across, well, we want you to look across the 6 different components and think of some of the strategies. What we'd like you to do is take a look at the Lead and Succeed inventory. It is about 4 pages long. It's just full of bullet points that have various strategies, various activities for the different kinds of strategies that you might implement. Go through the sections on one strategy that you've selected. So only think of one of the strategies that you would like to focus on now. You can always go back later. And we want you to circle the activities in that section that you're already conducting. This is an important thing to think about because we know that nobody here is starting at an absolute 0 point. Everybody is doing some work already, and it's important to acknowledge that and celebrate and take credit for that as well. After you've circled the activities that you already conduct, go ahead and underline those activities that you'd like to add to your list of practices that you can implement either at the end of this year or in the coming school year for 22-23. So if you take about 6 to 8 minutes, again, just think of one strategy that you'd like to focus on. Go through the activities in that strategy, circle those that you're already doing, and underline the activities that you're ready to implement either at the end of this year or beginning next year. So take about another minute to finish up, and then we'll have some sharing out because I'd love to hear from you guys and hear about some of the activities that you'd like to implement in the future.
Steve, maybe 2 examples from different sections.
Okay, so we would love to hear from you. If somebody would be interested, willing to share an example of a strategy and the section,
I'll
or I should say
share.
the activity. Thank you, Sherry.
I'm Sherry Belton from Richland County School District 1 in South Carolina. And I focus on the strategy of creating awareness. So this ties into what I listed for the first activity of a goal of deepening our principals' awareness or understanding of the NNPS model. And so one of the things in this list that we could do more of is creating these awareness sessions for school principals throughout the school year. We tend to lean more heavy on the beginning of the school year. We've had some success with like a video campaign for our parents. So maybe we can take that same model and bring it internal in the district to our school staff and principals to kind of refresh their knowledge of the NNPS model throughout the school year.
Wonderful, thank you.
Who else had one?
Yeah.
Looked in a different section of the lead and succeed inventory. Let's embolden somebody. Who else is going to share with us something that they do for create awareness, align program with policy? While you're getting brave, I want to share with you that, again, our Ohio partners had an evaluation done on their work over the last year, and an external evaluator, they call it. And what she found was that if parents and principals and teachers were aware that their schools were working on family engagement activities, that they had a team and they had a plan and they were trying to reach all families, The parents who were aware of the school team gave the school a higher rating than parents who did not know in the same school that this was going on. What does that tell you? It really tells you what Sherry shared. That if you build the awareness of the principals, teachers, and parents that this work is going on, they will appreciate the fact that the school has a partnership program and know that it's an important part of that work. Who looked in another section of Lead and Succeed? Somebody else? Brenda, do you see anybody who's hiding?
No, no one's raising a hand or anything.
No one's raising a hand. So let me reinforce then one that really is important. And I see Rachel. Rachel, did you have something?
Sorry. I was waiting for someone
To raise their hand?
raise their hand. because
Now, I
have-
want you all to look at how Rachel is dressed. She's dressed for a building that has no heat. So, okay, so those of you who want to think of something that's really great fun, I would love to hear from somebody who has a celebrate milestone. How do you recognize that someone really has done terrific work? What if one school in your area has earned a partnership award? Who had an example of what happens there? Rosa.
I have to share that as we recently had 2 of our schools feature in the PP Promise and Partnerships practices, we actually did 2 types of celebrations for them. So we recognized them during one of our board of trustees meetings. So they got a certificate and got to be recognized specially during the board meeting. And then as they are 2 Title I schools from the Title I office, we actually had their promise and practice printed, and we framed them. We had a certificate, and we had the actual practice and the cover of the 2021 booklet, and we presented it to them at school in front of their principals and took pictures. So we actually have those to share with you all, but we have recognized them and they got to speak about their practices during our monthly parenting meeting. So they got to get a lot of recognition for their wonderful work.
And that's really
That's
so
fantastic.
important, you know, and also we hope that you all will let your school boards know about the spotlights that become a national spotlight from NNPS as well. So all of that is really very good. And Steve, we're going to come back to you in a minute or so. For the
Rachel's going to help you with the.
Yeah, she's
after
going to
this
help.
slide,
Stay
but
tuned.
I have to
You're
depart
going to,
for my appointment.
okay, so
doctor's
you're going to
appointment.
depart when you have to depart.
Yep,
Okay.
which is right
So
about now.
let's
So
just
anyways,
summarize what we just did, and what we were looking at across these strategies is that whether you're talking about your leadership level or your district facilitation, that you can draw upon the strategies in the Lead and Succeed inventory to create awareness, align program and policy, guide learning, that's with our one-day team training workshop, share knowledge, don't keep it all to yourself, celebrate milestones, as we just heard, shine a spotlight when a spotlight is due, and document and evaluate progress. Now, those are 6 leadership strategies. That's not all that burdensome. And we know that if you look into the handbook, you'll see many ways to conduct these 6 strategies. So in order to complete this afternoon's kind of gathering with you, we want you to think about those of you who are starting up and those of you who are scaling up. what is it that you really want to do for the rest of this year? As you begin to think about growing your program, either getting it going or growing it bigger, what is your plan at the state and organization level? How are you going to identify or select district level leaders to grow your program in your location with more of them, either as a startup plan or as a scale-up plan? Be thinking about this. We're going to put you to work on it in a minute. So state and organization leaders, how do you want to grow your program in the next few months? Now, district leaders, we have a little poll for you to take. Actually, I think we changed this poll so that you can all do this, whether you are a state leader or a district leader. The district leaders are going to think about, how are you scaling up or starting up with your schools? So we want to see what's in your head, or what are you thinking about? What is your plan for this year or the beginning of next year? And how many schools or districts, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 plus, or you're not sure yet? And Rachel is going to start your poll, and we want you to fill in, what are you thinking about as your scale up plan for the rest of this school year and next school year? How are you going to grow your program? Some places are going to start with 1 to 5 schools, or they're going to add 1 to 5 districts. Some of our big locations are going to have 21 or more. Our partners in Richland County and in Pasco already have more than 21 schools as part of their program. So that's true. Maybe it's not a scale up, maybe it's a do better. Any other plans among those of you who are here today? So now we're going to end this poll. I see we have some startup places and we have some real big scale up places.
That's
And
what the, just sharing the results.
Yeah, sharing the results is what we saw. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel.
Of course.
And we're going to move on to finish up this afternoon. So you had some kind of review of what leadership and facilitation means, why it's so important. You have a thought in mind of how you're going to start up or scale up. And we want you to think about your next steps. Steve had an appointment. You know, we've been Zooming all day, every day. So we're getting to the end of this afternoon, but we're going to look at activity 3. And here, we want to know what you think your very next steps are. Tomorrow, what are you taking away from today's discussion? And to write your 3 next steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. What are 3 things you're going to do to strengthen your program, to start up or scale up? And activity 3 actually gives you a space to write in step 1, step 2, step 3. Here are 3 things that are going to help you grow your program. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, not 5, because we want to end pretty much on time. So take a look at this page that you printed out and jot down, what are 3 things that you can do to start, scale up, improve your program, given what we've talked about today. Okay, I'll come back in about 3 minutes, take some time. All right, folks, do we have one brave soul who would tell us what they wrote for a step 1, a 2, or a 3? Oh, Esmeralda, are you going to step up for us?
Yes.
What did you think is a next step in a place that's quite far advanced?
Well, I looked at the inventory, the lead and succeed inventory list that we just did as our previous activity, and just because we're living in different times, is like Rosa mentioned, you know, celebrating our schools that have been doing PPPs and getting published, just making something different. And I got some ideas from the Celebrate Milestone. So something different to do and review what else we can do from this inventory list to scale up.
Good. And that will continue to help people know you know what's going on, right? Good. So I hope you'll finish your 3 next steps and move your program forward. We know that if you are going to continue to plan, you're going to need many more than 3 next steps. As you continue to work with NNPS, we want you to know that we're here to help you lead and succeed. And so if you take a look later on today or tomorrow at the full lead and succeed inventory, we only asked you to look at one section, but you can really take a look at other sections as well, and follow up with NNPS however or whenever we can help you grow your program. You know, you can add new sites. You can contact our wonderful facilitator, Brenda, at any time, or Rachel and me or Steve, and you'll see our email shortly. And watch for those monthly e-briefs. You know, Brenda checks to see if you open your e-brief. So we hope that you will, in fact, open the e-briefs each time they come each month and see what's new. What else can we do to help you? That's really an important question, because that's why if we're here to help you lead and succeed, we really do want to know what assistance or resources or guidelines or information you want and need. And you always can contact Brenda. You can contact any one of us at any time about that. But if you have something today, please feel free to put it in the chat box. And also in the chat box, you can add any question that has come up in your mind as you went through these few slides with me and Steve today. And write a question in the chat box. We're going to come back to that in about a minute. If you have a question, write it in now. We'll come back and think with you about your question. If you need more guidance and you want to know how to conduct the one-day workshop with school teams, if you're just starting up, you haven't conducted the workshop before, then we want to invite you to the Leadership Institute. Now it's online. We used to conduct this over 2 days in Baltimore. Now we conduct it in 3 parts online. And for our 25th anniversary year, this year, we're inviting you to have one person register, and you can bring as many colleagues from your district, state, or region as you like at no extra cost. So that's going to happen March 17, 18, and 25. It's a 3-hour segment that covers the same information that we covered when it was here in Baltimore over 2 days. So we hope that those of you who want more planning and you want to see how to conduct the one-day team training so that you could do that yourself with more and new schools, if you're adding schools, scaling up or scaling up districts, then you want to register for the March Leadership Institute. One registrant can bring colleagues along at no cost. Here are some of our resources that can help you with your work. Everybody has a copy of the handbook that's over on the top left. Those of you who haven't looked into the catty corners here, the multicultural partnerships and family reading nights, you may want to look at that and see some ideas for meetings with parents, and all activities are in English and in Spanish. Some of them would have to be adapted if you are still conducting online and only virtual programs, but if you are back to meeting families in school, then those activities are pretty much, they're planned and they're great activities, or they're adaptable to the online kind of platforms. Here are some other resources that you know are available on our website for you as members. Look down in the bottom corner, you'll see our new member-only access code. That's for 2022. NNPS MEM 22 lets you have access to many books of promising practices, all 18 booklets of samplers, and the now free to member tips materials. There are 600 interactive homework activities for elementary and middle grades in English language arts, reading, math, and science. And if you are an experienced member of NNPS, you got all the basics in place, you've got your teams, they write their plans, they're conducting activities, they're even in our books of promising practices, they've even earned awards. You may be ready to think about TIPS interactive homework. If you are, take a look at those materials, and if you have questions, you're going to let us know. We want you to have our email addresses. If you go to the website, www.partnershipschools.org, you'll see Meet the Staff and link directly to any one of us at that website. And there's our email addresses for you to contact us directly. Brenda loves to talk partnerships. I'm going to go back to our Q&A page and ask Brenda, did you see anything in the chat box that we should talk about?
Yes, I think you can briefly share. Rosa wanted to know if we could send the annual update as early as March, if at all possible. I know we always send it in April. Can you share some light on that? Shed some light on that,
So
Joyce,
we can
please?
share it in early April. We try to get it to you by early April. When do your schools end, Rosa?
They usually end in early June. And
Early June.
what I have noticed, at least in the last 2 years, not only having dealt with the pandemic, but also usually April, May tend to be very busy for our schools. And I'm having to constantly remind them to send the update. And of course, we really want the information so that we can have our reports. But if we have it earlier on, perhaps they can start kind of getting a head start on getting it done.
Well, what I can promise is that we'll do our very best to get it to you in the first week of April. How's that?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do our very best. So that's a good question. Any others, Brenda?
That was it.
That was it. So we're really glad that you joined us today. We want you to thank you for the work you did last year, the work you're doing right now, and the work you're going to do tomorrow, because all of it is really important for understanding that your states, districts, and schools all have policies for partnership. Policies are not meant to be there to be ignored, they're to be enacted. And that's what you've been working on so hard. And we're very pleased, proud, and happy that you are doing that. So keep up the good work. Contact us when you have questions. We're here to help you. And we're really thankful to see you today. Whether we have heat in the building or not, we're glad to see you today. And we will be in touch. Brenda will be in touch next month.
Yes.
She just sent you a note.
Joyce, I wanted
Thank
to
you
share
very
with them that I did put out in the previous e-brief of the technical assistance form. So they can certainly use that. Someone already sent it back saying to me, I don't need help right now, but I did print it out. So when I do need help, I'll have it ready.
Now, that's a
So we
good
do
idea.
look to get forward to getting those.
That's a really great idea. And Brenda puts that in every edition of eBrief. It's a form that says you're ready or want to talk with her and set up a time to meet. That's a great idea. So thank you, folks, for coming. We're glad to see you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.